This video was brought to you by Epidemic Sound. Hey, what is up guys? David Zhao here, and I feel like this background's a little bit busy right now. Okay, that's way better. Today we're gonna be looking at the Laowa Argus 45mm f0.95 full frame lens. We're talking about beefy build quality, incredible image rendering, insane shallow depth of field, and unique looking images. So let's just dive right in. Let's jump into some of the incredible photos and videos you can expect from this lens. Starting with photos at f0.95, we're gonna get incredibly isolated subjects with a pleasing soft quality to the entire image. Except this is f4. You probably could have guessed that. And this, well, this is f2.8, and this is f0.95. Look at how the background just becomes extremely soft and filmic. If you're looking to create contrast and subject isolation by blurring the background, f0.95 really does the trick. Another benefit of having your aperture open so wide is the low light capability, allowing me to get this photo in an extremely dimly lit booth. And that's not to say it lacks sharpness. Typically super wide apertures mean softer images, and while it does lose some detail, it still has great sharpness. If you zoom into the shot of a leaf at f0.95, you can see all of the detail is there. It's not that the lens can't render the detail, it's more so that everything but a tiny sliver is out of focus. If you really want to see all of that detail, just stop the lens down to even f2.8 and get it in focus, and voila, there's all of that detail and sharpness. If we look at some video samples, we can see similar results. At f0.95, the footage looks incredibly cinematic and has some of that vintage aesthetic. The bokeh is extremely pleasing and soft, while subjects really stand out against their background. On top of that, f0.95 allows for incredible low light performance, adding versatility to the list of qualities this lens carries. Looking at the optics of this lens, as we've discussed, it definitely captures a lot of detail and resolves high contrast images. The color rendition is very accurate, its sharpness is definitely commendable, and the visual aesthetics and characteristics produced by this lens look beautiful. The 15 blade aperture allows for extremely pleasing round bokeh balls, and it allows a minimum focusing distance of 50 centimeters or 19.7 inches, which, while not a macro capable lens, it still allows you to get close enough to subjects, and combine that with the extremely wide f0.95 aperture, it allows you to get some incredibly unique looking shots. The distortion on this lens is rather well controlled, as expected from any lens produced by Laowa, as nearly all of their lenses feature exceptional distortion control. I did note that lens flares produced by this lens more often than not featured hard-edged flares. Of course, photography is subjective, and this may be something you like in your photos, but if you're one to dislike hard-edged flares and prefer softer, blooming flares, then this might be something you'll have to work against during certain lighting conditions. Finally, one other thing I did note was the amount of chromatic aberrations found in my images when photographing higher contrast subjects from a distance. This really only occurred when I shot at f0.95, and I noticed that once I closed down to f2.8 or f4, this problem really just disappeared. Finally, I wanted to take a look at the build quality of this lens. This is a hefty lens, weighing in at 835 grams or 1.84 pounds. It's got an all-metal construction and features some beautiful glass. It is, of course, a full manual control lens, so it features a manual focus ring, distance markers, manual aperture ring, as well as a click-declick switch for the aperture ring. The aperture ring opens as wide as f0.95 and closes down to f16. And one thing I did want to point out is that the manual focus ring has a pretty long focus throw, a little over 270 degrees from minimum focus to infinity. Now, before we get to my final thoughts, first I want to share my thoughts with you on today's sponsor. Epidemic Sound is a service that I've been using for over 3 years now as a paying customer. They have a huge library of not just professionally produced music, but also sound effects. When I say a huge library, I mean they have over 35,000 music tracks and over 90,000 sound effects, with new tracks being added every week. All of the music and sound effects in this video, and just about all of my videos, are from their library. Whether you're looking for a cinematic score to your next short film, nondescript background music for a commercial project, or a lighthearted track to highlight your next travel vlog, they've got you covered. If you want to build out a beautiful, complex soundstage with a huge variety of ambience tracks and subtle sound effects, they've got you covered as well. You get access to their entire library with an affordable monthly subscription. If you're interested in checking out Epidemic Sound, use the link in the description down below and start your 1-month free trial. Thank you, Epidemic Sound, for sponsoring this video and for providing such an incredible service. So what are my thoughts on the Laowa Argus 45mm f0.95 full frame lens? Well, let's start with some cons first. It's a 2-pound lens, and while I love beefy lenses, it weighs more than my A7 III does, which makes it a pretty front-heavy setup. When you compare that to most lenses which weigh half the weight of the camera body, it's definitely not insignificant. On top of that, the 270-degree focus throw of the manual focus ring is phenomenal for photos, letting you really dial in the focus for a photo, but for video, however, it makes it nearly impossible to adjust focus mid-shot, as you'll always end up moving the camera in the process. So this means that manual focus racking is completely out of the question. But let's talk about the pros. While it is heavy, the lens is incredibly well built and solid and seems very, very durable. And the 270-degree focus throw, if you're planning on shooting a lot at f0.95, which I'd imagine you would be if you bought this lens, that long focus throw gives you the ability to accurately dial in your focus before every single shot, which is kind of critical if you want to get in-focus photos and videos at that wide of an aperture. Next, let's look at the pricing. At $799, you'd think I'd say this lens is overpriced, but let's take a look at the competitors. First, well, okay, this one isn't really a good comparison or a real comparison, but I just wanted to say that the Leica Noctilux f0.95 cost $12,000. I just wanted to say that because, like, that blows my mind. Anyways, the nearest competitor would likely be the Nikon Z Speedmaster 50mm f0.95, which also retails at $799. If you're looking for the closest Sony native lens, you'd be looking at the 50mm f1.2 G Master, which retails at $1,998. So while it's not winning any awards for being a budget lens, it's at least priced on par with any alternatives you consider while offering top-of-the-line sharpness and bokeh rendering. What this lens offers is not a clinical and artifact-free image rendering. Rather, I believe that the combination of its sharp detail rendering, softer halation artifacts, and presence of chromatic aberration and distinct lens flares provided a unique modern take on a vintage aesthetic. This lens can produce some incredible images and really stands out from other lenses without being tacky or gimmicky. Overall, there's just something about the photos and videos it produces that I love. I think that if you're trying to add some creativity to your portrait photos or narrative films, as long as you have the time to make sure everything's in focus, this is an incredible lens. If you want to check out this lens, it comes in the Sony E, Canon RF, and Nikon Z mount. For more information, check out the link in the description down below. Alright guys, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and get notified of when new videos are released. Let me know in the comment section down below on whether or not you think you would shoot at f0.95. As always guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.